Hello, my name is Kevin Loftus. I'm one of the directors at ACT and involved in the regeneration strategy and action plan for Buncrana. This is a project that we've been working on for the last number of months, and it seeks really to develop a plan for Buncrana into the future with priority areas on facilities that would go forward for funding. So the project itself is developed as part of a three-stage process. We have the first phase, which was done a number of weeks ago now, which was the discover phase. We had a workshop around that. It's where we sought to understand the constraints and opportunities of the town from the people in the town. And then during that workshop, we also heard the ideas that the community had and would like to take forward. So that was also a listening exercise and a gathering exercise. The second workshop, which we had a week ago now in person, was the define phase, where we actually showed back the workshop proposals from the community to the community and asked you to evaluate them and give feedback and I suppose show what you felt was working and what was not working. This is the online presentation, the online version of that exercise, and this will be accompanied at the end of the presentation with a survey that we would like you to take, which tries to mimic the workshop that we did in person. We'll take all of this feedback then, and again, we'll do another round of iteration and then with the council, we move towards the final proposal, which is deliver. And on that, we will show the shortlisted set of proposals that will integrate within Buncrana's plan, and those projects will be set out for future funding opportunities. So the plan itself is underpinned by the Town Centre First policy, which is a government policy which seeks to put people really at the heart of developing ideas and priorities for their community. It recognises that community members are really the best place to understand what the needs of the place are. So there are a few objectives that come from the Town Centre First policy. The first one is to create an image of a town. What do people think of when they think of that town? To define a role for the town. Is it a commuter town? Is it a manufacturing town? Is it a tourism town? To generate vibrancy and vitality, to provide sustainable urban growth, to protect heritage and culture, to ensure sustainability, and to foster social inclusion. And we've taken these objectives and really tried to integrate them as much through the community's proposals as possible. We always start off with an understanding of where we are, and in the first workshop we went through our baseline understanding of Buncrana and we got you to give feedback on it. But to give a very short synopsis and a distilled one of what that was, I suppose Buncrana, sitting on the shores of Lough Swilly, between the loch and the mountains behind. It's one of the largest towns in Buncrana. It's on the Inishowen Peninsula, close to Letterkenny, to Derry, and to other smaller settlements. There are original or early settlements going back, I'm sure even thousands of years, but some of the more recent ones are really what are seen as the founding of the town, the 15th century settlements around O'Doherty's Keep. And then from that, between changes and Buncrana Castle expansions over the time, we have seen the town grow from what was a main street, expanding towards the shoreline, and then extending backwards as well as the town has grown in all directions up to what we see currently today. It was very much a manufacturing town from the beginning, with the mills used to produce linen. And from fabric, we also had the production of clothes from MacArthur's factory through to the fruit of the loom. Tourism has always been a key industry also within the town of Buncrana, linking of course to the beautiful location and landscape of the area. But as with manufacturing, we have seen challenges around tourism, particularly looking at water quality. If the water is the main draw to Buncrana, then having issues around water quality is a key concern. And as with other Irish towns, we see that there are challenges around climate change and flooding, and we need to build resilience across all of our urban centres to mitigate against this. Buncrana has a town core which is fairly well defined, and within that, a 5 minute and a 10 minute walking zone, you can really find most of the essentials, which is a good place for any community to start in. There are a number of vacant buildings, both small and large scale industrial. And the demographics of the town are also quite interesting. So we saw a steady growth from 91 up to 2006, and then even after the closure of the Fruit of the Loom in that year, it continued to grow by around another 15% to 2011, after which point it has sort of plateaued and continued close to the same population. That being said, although the population isn't increasing, the need for new housing due to the defective concrete blocks is urgent. So how do we create safe housing and community facilities? How do we make use of all vacant buildings? In terms of mobility, comparing Buncrana to the rest of Ireland, we see that Buncrana has more people walking than the average across the country. We have less people using public transport, and we have more people using private cars. So quite a mix of different modes of mobility. From that, again, how do we encourage public transport and facilitate car sharing and support active travel? So some of the background reading that we've done to develop these proposals, as well as the community input, both national and local plans, and in particular being informed by the research of the town team and the proposals that they've put forward around the need for more apartments, places for dogs, connect the town to the shore, facelift for the main street and nightclub, redeveloping the loom, more trees. And these are just some of the example proposals from that. We had the first workshop where we sought to understand the challenges and opportunities of the town, and we also got the community's proposals and feedback across a number of core areas. So the first one is the public realm. People mentioned having a welcoming sign on the Inishowen side, a lack of street lighting, skate park wanted, town square not well used, lack of libraries and other feedback. Employment and economic activity, historical tours, tourism development would increase employment, day tours, water sports, water quality unsafe, huge loss for tourism. Utilise blue, green and green economy to provide employment, remote working incentives to encourage people to stay in the area, lack of housing and offices. Again, lots of feedback there across a number of different areas. We have some existing developments, so projects that are underway, from a clubhouse to an enterprise centre and leisure spot. We also have social housing proposed within the wider area, or housing proposed within the wider area. Mobility, again, like the others, we've had feedback across that. Two-way bridge in a relief road, more disabled parking needed, wheelchair access, lack of taxis, badly used alleyways. Main Street needs to prioritise pedestrians. Weekend Main Street could be pedestrianised, Main Street congestion, lack of public transport, cycle routes to school, and so on. Nature, climate and flooding, river not cleaned after flooding, more wetland projects, lack of organisations maintaining green spaces, not enough trees in the urban area, need more trees planted along banks, flood risk, and again, more challenges there. and opportunities. Existing green space initiatives, there are quite a few between Swan Park, the Bee Garden, the Amazing Grace Park. But again, there's always more that can be done. One of the nicer small initiatives are the mini bee gardens that we can see dotted throughout the town. Positive news in terms of water quality, the wastewater infrastructure is being improved, so that's going to have hopefully a positive impact there. Looking at water, we've also tried to understand from other European and national examples how parks and recreational areas can become buffer zones for increased rainfall. So places that are good to hang out and spend time and for nature, but also to help us with climate resilience. We see river flooding solutions in Marina Park in Cork, where the river banks are designed to be able to absorb increased rainfall, and the Lower Lee in Cork City, again, a flood relief scheme looking at the park really as a buffer zone. We have other examples within residential areas, this one in Sweden, and again looking at how rain gardens are used in this instance to act as buffers. So this comes from the principles of sustainable urban drainage, and this is something you might have heard of quite recently in relation to some of the flooding incidents we've had in Ireland. It's a way of soft engineering to manage floodwater. So when we think of a typical stormwater drain, that only has a certain amount of capacity, and a lot of those were built many years ago, where the capacity is, the amount of rainwater we're getting now is more than what they were designed for. So those systems get overwhelmed when there's a lot of rain all at one time. Sustainable urban drainage works to act as a filter between that. So instead of rainwater going straight into a stormwater system, it goes into a planting zone. The water is infiltrated into the soil slowly, or it absorbs into the plants and is evaporated. And this is a way of slowing the flow effectively so that there's less water going into those stormwater drains. This is an example of some of the solutions that we've been implementing in another Irish town, where we're using that sustainable urban drainage approach between planters and rain gardens, with trees that have been designed to absorb water, with small pools, and with park areas, all helping to build stormwater resilience. Then again, looking at the community, a need for art and culture centre, storage space, no storage space for communities, need more groups, volunteers to encourage pride of place, the ballroom to be utilised with social enterprises, need multi-use event, community centre, farmers markets and community gardens needed, no space to grow your own. So again, many different bits of feedback there. Community swimming pool wanted. Vacant buildings, private ownership of buildings with potential, asbestos in buildings, Main Street living, defective concrete blocks, huge constraint, incentive for derelict buildings, over the shop, living to be encouraged, and incentives, vacant factory, opportunity for social hubs, community, vegetable gardens, markets and social enterprises. So again, a huge number of challenges and opportunities there. Then looking at heritage, improve funding for historic structures for owners, preservation and enhancement of architectural conservation area, opportunities to preserve our history, heritage, historical trails, awareness, education, not enough funding for historic structure owners, Swan Mill, heritage to be utilised. We asked you to go through all of those themes, and then we also asked you to prioritise them by category. So what you can see here is of the groups that were there, 1 to 5, the priorities that they put. No one group matched another exactly. We did see that employment and commerce were the top for 2 groups, and reuse of vacant buildings was also the top for 2 groups. But in general, it was quite a mixed bag in terms of the priorities. But As there was no clear, consistent order, the one thing you all agreed on was that all topics are interconnected. So flood mitigation, employment and commerce, reimagining vacant buildings, mobility, they shouldn't be thought of as separate pillars. They should be thought of as interconnected, breaking down the silos. We asked what you would like to see Buncrana as by 2050. You said a thriving tourism and destinations, local sustainable energy creation, thriving nighttime economy, vibrant town centre, well-connected, a unique green town, attractive place for young families, meeting carbon neutrality targets, Buncrana Riviera, sensitive development, creative and innovative. And then many of the proposals that you came forward with also. So to go through those regeneration proposals, and everything you'll see here was captured from feedback from the community and the ideas that you put forward. Some of them are going to focus on different areas, but all of them hopefully touch on opportunities that are interconnected, and we've tried to show that as much as possible. So we show this as a walk through the town and the potential that it could have. First of all, strengthening Main Street and Main Street accessibility. Looking at the section and how the areas are broken down, we can see that although it's a one-way system, there's actually quite a lot of room given over to the that single one-way route, where actually 3 meters is really enough for a car or some type of vehicle to move through a town centre carriageway. So if we did that, we could actually increase the amount of sidewalk or footpath on either side, making that more attractive and welcoming for people. We could go further. We could introduce bike lanes, for example. We could extend the public realm on all sides. We could even totally pedestrianize the street, which would create a large space for people to gather and spend time. This is the existing Main Street. So what it would look like potentially as an increased pavement space, increased pedestrian crossings, increasing the potential for bike-friendly zones, having car parking still within that, but then also being able to have a shared space with a similar surface for the road and for the footpaths, and to also reimagine this as a totally pedestrianised space, either on a temporary basis or part-time, maybe at weekends, or potentially into the future as a full-time pedestrian space. The market square to be decluttered and to be a place to stay and spend time, for biodiversity to be increased, to have that shared surface and materials, and to have active use on the square. Main Street circulation in terms of events, how that can be achieved, and looking at the alleyways also as a potential for increased connectivity. So can we make those welcoming spaces for people to walk through and cycle along? And can we also look at these backland areas as opportunities to provide housing and community facilities, so that we're not continuously expanding and sprawling beyond the town, but we're actually densifying where that is possible. Again, another view where we integrate nature and active travel within the laneways, making it more attractive for people to use them, and also trying to maybe reimagine how we do car parking to still facilitate it and the need for it, but without taking additional ground space for it. Again, active, safe pedestrian walking ways and cycle space can increase the potential for some of those backland buildings to be reimagined and brought back into use. So lots of potential really within the laneways to increase the town core. And if we imagine accessibility around the town core, so not just within the main street and the laneways or the alleys, but to look at the streets that are just adjacent to that, increasing the amount of crossing points for people to increase the public realm space for people to walk through, and also provide spaces for nature. Could a lower speed limit improve safety and experience? This is something we're seeing quite a lot across Europe, the UK and Ireland. So typically your residential estates are 30 kilometres, approach roads into a town are around 60 kilometres, and then the main streets through town are often around 50, though traffic does typically move slower through the town core itself. We've seen in Donegal and Rathdown the reduction of the speed limit to 30 kilometres, and also we're seeing this in Cork across a number of neighbourhoods within the city and towns. So reduced speed in the urban core reduces air pollution, carbon emissions, noise, and improves pedestrian safety, cyclist safety, car user safety, traffic flow, accessibility, and social activity. So could we see the town core and the area around that as a 30 kilometre zone to make it more attractive for people to move through, to make it safer, to increase the quality of air within that space? And to help that, could we improve traffic junctions where at the moment there's a lot of inefficiency in the layout? There are not many safe crossings, and there is a lot of area dedicated to cars, little or less to pedestrians, and although there's a lot of space dedicated to cars, there's an awful lot of underutilized space. So can we reimagine this to improve the layout while still keep the traffic flows, increase the likelihood of cycle infrastructure, and bring nature back into the town core? And again, along Swan Mills, how we could, the bridge there, how we could improve access. Connecting the coast to the town. This was a key ask. We know that the town core itself has many destinations. The seafront is an important destination, and it needs additional access. So having that connection, potential cycleway through down to it, widening the footpath, making that more welcoming. And then along that we have underutilized sites. Could that be used as community garden space, or a dog park, or a pickup point, or a play zone? Or could we also imagine some of these vacant sites as opportunities for innovative housing solutions? So imagine modular housing that is designed sustainably, designed for quick assembly, that will help alleviate some of the stress around the defective concrete blocks, but then also creates attractive places for people to live close to the town centre. Where we have some of the car parks, could we also double them up as market spaces during times when they're less busy? Reinforcing the coast. So one of the key assets of Buncrana, how could we reimagine that? Could we have a connective boardwalk that links along the coast with a cafe, with playground, with sports pitches, promenade, with parking, stairs to a beachside park, and an avenue tying it back into the town again? The existing shore, what it looks like, and what it might look like with more friendly seating, active spaces, and more accessibility. Then looking across again, moving forward towards the Fruit of the Loom site, what that could look like. Riverside improvements. This is the areas where we had some challenges around flooding. Can we soften that with natural engineering solutions to create a buffer zone along those areas where when the storm water comes, or when there's increased water within the banks of the river, that they can spread out naturally rather than as a contained blowout, or a blowout from a contained situation. Loop parking trail, walking trails. So we have all of these trails along the town, the laneways, all of these pedestrian access opportunities. By linking them up between the main streets, the riverside, the shorefront, we could have a walking loop that is 70% off road. So the majority of the experience is not alongside a car or a roadway, but free walking and cycling safe spaces. The existing Swan Mill Riverwalk, can that be improved in terms of accessibility? And then the Riverwalk behind the GAA pitch, could that be formalised to again improve walking accessibility? Overflow traffic to facilitate pedestrianisation. So if we do pedestrianise the town core, we have the relief road in the future coming. Will that create an opportunity to reroute the traffic with a two-way system that will allow free-flowing traffic around the town and therefore ease any congestion as a result of pedestrianisation? Safe Routes to School, this is a program that we're seeing being rolled out again throughout the country. So following the Safe Routes to School scheme, we can add cycle lanes, bike parking, bike rental points near schools, new safe walking routes, speed limit reductions, or reduced speed limits. And we do see, as mentioned, examples across the country where kids now go to school by themselves using walking or on bikes in ways that are much safer and healthier. So linking that in with a road or a cycle network that would go through the town where possible, having isolated bike lanes, and then where not possible, having cycle friendly routes. The current road along which the three schools project is going to be developed, can we imagine that already as a place that would integrate the cycle and walking infrastructure? Looking at other examples of successful bike sharing in Westport and Castlebar and Mayo, we've had a trial of Lime Bike, and that's been hugely successful. That's now going to be rolled out to other towns within the county. We've seen other providers in Dublin, Rathdown, and areas on the east coast also trial Moby bikes and different systems, again with a huge amount of success. So is that something that could be piloted in Buncrana? Permeability for school walks. The best way, of course, for especially younger children is to have safe, isolated ways for them to move to school. So could we connect or create a connection of permeability, a link from the school into the town core where it's exclusively walking and cycling? And again, looking at some of these town periphery sites as opportunities for residential development. Branding and signage. The identity of Buncrana as a seaside town is really important. So can that become a consistent theme throughout the way that the town is signposted, the street furniture, that this becomes something of an identity marker that people think of when they think of Buncrana? Also looking at shop fronts and the shop front design code or a high street design code, where we see throughout Irish towns, very often with vibrant colours, a community has come together to say this is the approach we're going to take to make an exciting and vibrant town centre experience. Is that something that could also happen in Buncrana? The welcome from the south, could that be repeated with a welcome from the north? And looking at potential sites, both opportunity sites, which are vacant areas that could be developed on, and existing vacant buildings. How can we reimagine these areas? So starting with vacant buildings, could the smaller ones, the houses, the small retail units, could they be reimagined as cafes and bakeries? Could they be reimagined as kitchen gardens, for example? And what about medium-sized industrial buildings? Again, many of those around the town. Could they be a hub for circular construction waste. So instead of throwing away the good items that are left over from the defective concrete block demolitions, could they be stored for future reuse? Studios for makers and creatives. An example of some studios that have been let out to artists and people within the creative studio space. Mixed use event and retail spaces. We have Banana Republic in Belfast as an example, flexible office space. We have the Forge, a space for communal living, a brewery, for example, within the wider area. There are a number of breweries, and also linked to that, what about a distillery? Again, there are some within the area, and we know that the Inishowen Peninsula was once labelled the Pushing Republic because of the amount of spirits that were created in the locality. What about a crafts market or a cycling hub? Could they be used as fab labs where we're producing, again, looking at Buncrana's heritage of production? Could we look at the bioeconomy with seaweed, with other natural forms of production to create new innovative materials that could be used for other products and manufacturing? Or unique sets to exhibit with? Could these buildings become places for exhibitions? And then for the larger loom building, could it be a museum or somewhere for retail with a space for production, a community space and meeting point, a hub for creativity and businesses? Smaller projects, to start with those, can we imagine those vacant buildings with retail and above shop living? The old John Bar site, which has been a ruin for the last while, could that be either rebuilt, or could we imagine this as a community pocket park? The vacant residential buildings, can they be reimagined as houses again, bringing people back into the town core? And the old Garda station, could we see that as instead of a vacant building, as an enterprise centre, so a place to create employment opportunities for small businesses to get started and to be able to grow? Then the training centre opportunity, a site that already exists where there is plans, can we support with the development of a training and community hub? And then supporting or beside that, again, another vacant building, could that be reimagined with cafes or retail below and office space above? The new leisure centre as a key opportunity to build on some of the needs of the community. Would the Swan collection in the National Collection be exhibited in Swan Mill, for example? Could that be a place where we have an exhibit, but also art or craft residencies where we have people producing on site as production would have happened in the mill? Can we look at the bridge as a potential connection to bring people from one side to another, but also as an opportunity for maybe gathering, a picnic spot? Could we have a connection into Swan Mill? Could we have renewable energy being produced on site again? And that hydroelectric point, can we reimagine that as a cafe, potentially with a small library and linked into a riverside garden? So looking at that whole site, not as one function, but actually as a collection of functions that work together between exhibits and creative production space, with potentially gardens that are used commercially within the cafe, but maybe also provide allotment space for residents to spend time. And then looking at some of those opportunity sites as places for residential development. An art centre, so we have St. Mary's Hall, which is one side of the town main street, theatre and cinema space? Could we have another anchor on the other side as an arts centre where we have space for exhibitions, for practice, and also for performance? Vacant school solution. So we know a number of schools will soon move on to the same one site. What happens to the buildings that are left afterwards? Are they a challenge, or are they an opportunity if we already start to anticipate what could happen there? So the Crana College moving from a vacant building in the future to either a library and civic hub, or could it be a place for apprenticeship and training centre? Ilskell Buncrana, again, a building that will become vacant. It's beside a youth centre, so could we imagine the extension of youth centre services to accommodate the needs of younger people? And then the second Gaelskull in the old mill building where there is a hostel, can we extend the hostel offering, and could we also provide shops or retail within that as well? Construction material and recycling centre in relation to the defective concrete blocks. We have examples in London where we see material reuse. We also are all familiar with salvage yards around the country. Could one of the vacant factory buildings be used as a circularity hub where materials are brought, stored, and eventually sold on to people who might need them for their own work? Community exhibition centre. We have the loom factory, which is unused. Could we imagine the loom as, and that's a huge area, that's 17,300 meters squared. Could we imagine the loom as a skate park, or as a brewery, or a distillery, a community garden, greenhouse space, as a nightclub, or a shopping centre, or a sports facility, creating active water sports, a residential and office development, or a combination of all of these? Then vacant site developments, so a wetland park where we have the high flood risk area around the underutilised factory, where an old factory has since been removed. Could that space be left over to nature and brought back really as a preserve where it acts as a buffer for the surrounding areas, holding water when there is excess flooding? The site of the burnt down Swilly Hotel, do we bring back the hotel, or do we look at it as a maritime museum site or a place for camping? And then the potential for sites to reimagine the vacant sites close to the town core. Can they provide opportunities for mixed tenure residential development within the town area? So not just 3 beds, but a mix of 1 beds, 2 beds, 3 beds, even 4 beds, so that people have opportunities to downsize or move and to live within a community space close to the town. We also leave some area over instead of developing everything, but have space for a community park close to the centre of the town. And then the GAA extension, we know that there is to be a new site, so extending from what the current site is, having a second one. Does that offer us an opportunity to reimagine the existing site with sustainability initiatives, so expanding the GAA's community role to include preservation of nature, and the GAA really is a showcase that can also host other activities and essential community needs? And then the new GAA site proposal, could that integrate shared activity spaces, for example, walking trails or running trails around the facilities that would be used by the club but also the wider community? And could we imagine connecting the two sites together? So by linking them with a safe cycling route, maybe a dedicated cycleway in some areas, and then a mixed road and cycling space in others. Could we encourage active travel between these sites? So the town proposal summary, we've looked at proposals around the shorefront, around residential developments, the Main Street improvements, connecting the Main Street to the shore, the loom. We have the enterprise centre, town centre community facilities, urban green space, connective cycle and walking infrastructure, Swan Mills Mills cultural development, a sort of mixed use zone, Riverwalk improvements and biodiversity zones, and so on. So in all, we actually had 60 different ideas that were brought forward in the first workshop, so a huge amount of input. We distilled those because many of them were overlapping or very similar, so we distilled those down to 40, which are the ones that you've just seen during this presentation. And our goal is to distill this down even further to the core community asks for the coming future. So we would really like to thank you for spending the time to go through this presentation. And now we'd love you to go over to the survey, have a look through. There are the 40 projects there. You don't have to do all of them. And you don't have to spend a huge amount of time on them. Please just look at them quite high level, give your gut reaction to whether something is going to be positive or not. And we will take all of this feedback into the final round of development, where we distill the ideas down to what the core plan will be. And hopefully you'll be able to see the result of that within the next number of months. Thanks very much for your time.